Hi, this is Fire from Scrappy Mania, and today I'm going to create a layout, and this is the inspiration for my layout. I kind of drew it out, so let me go ahead and review it a little bit so that way you can kind of get an idea of where I'm going. So as you can see here, it's going to be a 12 by 12, and then I'm going to put stitching around the edges. I'm going to distress the edges. And then this here is a branch. It's going to have flowers and some leaves. And I'm going to put a Mod Podge, one of those that I created, those frames. I'm going to go ahead and put a frame here made out of either hot glue using my molds, or I might cut it out of the Cricut and make it multiple layers of paper, glue on together to create the frame. I don't know yet what I'm going to do, but I know it's going to have some kind of frame there, and it's going to have kind of a title within that frame. I'm going to put another title here, either family or something like that here. It's going to have another frame, and then it's going to have lots of flowers that I'm going to build. It's going to have one of my glitter butterflies. It's going to go here, and it's going to have kind of like a poppy seed or something there. I'm not sure yet, but something that kind of comes out of the design. And as you notice, I'm using the rule of thirds. So a lot of the stuff is kind of, instead of putting it in the middle, I kind of brought it over. My picture's going to come over more towards the left and downwards. It's going to occupy a little lower on the paper, so it'll give us some interest. I'm going to put some lace, and then I'm going to put a lot of embellishments around here, and to balance it out, I'm putting embellishments here. So that makes my paper more balanced. Now, if I would bring everything on one side, it will feel like my page is out of balance. So that's why I'm kind of, when I put a lot of embellishments here, I always try to go on the opposite side and put something there just to balance it out. So I hope you will like what I create. I'm kind of going as I go. I'm going to show you a lot of different techniques, and let me show you what I'm going to use. First, I'm going to use some Donna Salazar dies. So these are the Spellbinder dies from Donna Salazar, and I'm going to use these to make some more of my flowers. I do have a tutorial how I use these to create my dimensional flowers, so go ahead and review that. I'll put the link. But go ahead and review that tutorial so you can see how to create the flowers. Then I'm gonna go ahead and mix some of my silk flowers that I purchased. You know, I buy flowers like at Joann's or the dollar store or whatever, and I use these to kind of sprinkle them on my pages. So I'm gonna use some of these. I have a whole big bag, so I want to start using some of these. The paper, this is the photo I'm going to use. This is my grandmother and her children, my aunts and my uncle and my mother. So I'm going to go ahead and scrap this. This is a copy of a picture that I have in a digital form. And then I'm going to use some book print to create some of my flowers. Now this book print, I did the same treatment that I showed you on an earlier video on how to deacidify your book. When I first got this book from an antique store or from a secondhand store, I tested it and it was acidic. After I did the treatment, if it stays clear, it's acidic. If it changed to purple, is acid free. So I did my treatment with 1 liter of club soda with 4 tablespoons, or actually 2 tablespoons of milk of magnesium, and you put it in the refrigerator overnight, 24 hours. The next day you soak your paper for at least an hour, and that was what makes your paper, it deacidifies your paper. So I'm going to use this on my layout. So I did a bunch. So what I did is one day I took a book, I cut it up, and I made all these paper ends. They're ready to go for layouts and things like that. So I'm going to use that. I'm going to use this paper is a paper that I went ahead and glimmer mist, and I'm going to create some flowers out of this. And notice I created some small little mini flowers already with this paper. The other paper that I'm going to be using for my background is this one. I may be using this one. This is Antiquities GC Design by Donna Salazar. So I'm going to be either using that or this side. It's double-sided, so I can technically get 2 pieces of paper out of one. I'm going to use this one, and this is going to be the frame, and I'm thinking, I have a kind of technique that I'm thinking might work. I want to have this on the frame and this on the frame. So I'll see how we're going to get that working. And then this is going to be my background because I really love this here. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and hopefully you enjoy the process. And let's just, oh, and before I forget, I might be using these as well to create more flowers. And then this is going to be my center. And I really like this, how this is coming out when you emboss it. It looks like stamen. So I really like this punch. I think it's a must punch to have. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I hope you enjoy the process. So I settled on the brown cardstock. I had a gold and then another kind of gold orange color, and I just didn't like the combination. But the brown really kind of, it really worked good with this page because I do have some brown on the dress form and also on the gears. So I'm just distressing all the pages here, the base page and the top layer. And then I'm just gonna ink it with some vintage photo distressing ink, and I'm using that to ink all my edges. So I did the stitching around the edges. Now I'm going to pencil in. I got my hot glue gun ready to go. And now I'm going to pencil in my branch. And actually, before I pencil in my branch, I may want to go ahead and see where I'm going to lay this down. Because I'm just going to put hot glue here and then of here, so that way I can just fit that in the middle. And I do have a tutorial how to create these. These are my hot glue, and I'm going to have to, I'm going to paint this in a second. But let me go ahead and see how I'm going to place my branch. So you loosely draw the branch out and just lightly with a pencil. And then I'm going to go with my hot glue, and I'm just going to fill in my pencil line with the hot glue, making sure that my frame will fit perfectly in between that area where the branch starts. And now I'm going to show you how I colored it. So I got some alcohol ink, and I'm using a yellow alcohol ink. I believe it's called buttercream. And then that's just to give it a little base coat. Then I'm going to go over with some of my gold, just to give it that gold antique look. And after that, I do go over it with, because it was a little dull, so I do go over with some glossy accent. And I use my finger to kind of just smear the glossy accent just to seal it and give it that glossy look. And I'll let it dry. Now I'm going to take some acrylic paint, and I'm taking some burnt sienna, and I'm just painting. I'm putting a little bit of water to water it down, but I'm just using that acrylic paint to paint on top of my glue branch, and just to give it a nice brown color. And even if you go out a little bit, like you see, it's not perfect, we are going to cover that with some flowers. So, but it still looks good. As you can see there, it really looks good. And then later on, you'll see me, I'll go over it with a little bit of glossy accent just to give it a little bit of sheen, because it does look dull with the acrylic paint once you mix it with water. So the next process is to take my book paper that I have treated to make it acid free, and I'm just taking some of my pastels, and I believe these are oil pastel. It came with a kit that I gave my daughter, and I'm just coloring it before I create my flower. And it's very similar to how I created the other flowers in my tutorial. So I'll put the link of my flowers tutorial on the description box. But this one I want to show you how to make this one because it's a little more trickier. When you are using this paper, the paper that you have treated with the decidifying solution, which is the club soda and the milk of magnesium, is very fragile. So I want to show you how you can create this flower, and so that way you don't tear it. So let me show you real quickly how to do it, and see, it looks pretty nice. Especially what I did is I colored it and I cut it out after I colored with some of my pastels, and it makes something pretty like that. Okay, and it's not that much, that doesn't have a lot of dimension. So let me show you. Instead of beads, I'm using these berry accents, and it's very, very cheap. So, and then of course you're going to use some floral wires. So you're going to just cut about maybe 6 inches of this floral wire. Then you're going to take your needle nose plier, and you're just going to bend it. And by the way, you need a mouse pad and an embossing tool. This is a McGill embossing tool, but any embossing tool that you have, you can even use a pencil or a pen if you don't have an embossing tool. So you want to see how I'm creating like a loop. Let me take this out because you don't really see it with that dark outline. So I'm creating a loop. And it's going to be big enough. There. And then up. It's going to be big enough to house my bead. And then push it up and it'll create something like that. Then take your bead, or not your bead, but your big ball, one of those accent beads or whatever they call it. You put some hot glue, and you place it there. And then before I do anything, I forgot to tell you. Okay, you place it there and put it aside to dry. Let me see, for this I use 2 of the large ones. So I'm going to do a red one now. So 2 of the large ones. Then I use 2 of the medium size, or actually 3 of the medium size. Or was it 2? I think there was 2. Yeah, 2 of the medium size and 3 of the small ones. So the little smaller size. And these are the Donna Salazar flowers. So 3, let's see. You can use 3. I'll use 2 of these, 3 of these, 2 of these. So that's good enough. I mean, you can make it however layers you want. As long as you have at least 2 for the bud, you're good to go. Then this will go around. So you'll see it'll come out. So I'm going to use 2 of the large ones, 3 of the next size, and then 2 of the small ones. So let's go ahead and start with the, before we put it on there, we need to treat our petals. So we want to emboss it. And because this is very delicate, this paper really tears easily, you're just going to be careful when you are embossing it. Like this. Can you see what I'm doing? Hope you can. And I like to use, that's why I'm using the big round embossing tool instead of the small one. Because the big one is, I believe, or I think it helps not tear the paper as much. The small ones, when I was using a smaller one than this, it was tearing the paper a little bit. but the big one does not tear the paper. And that's the difference between my other flower that I show you how to create with cardstock. Cardstock can handle the little one. This paper is fragile, so it cannot handle the small embossing tool. But because it's fragile, it just makes beautiful, delicate flower. It's beautiful. I really like it. And then, very carefully, I'm going to take some vintage photo. I'm going to go ahead and ink the edges. Okay, now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead carefully put the petals in between my finger, my index finger, and then pinch it on either side of the petal inward, and you just crimple it up. See how I'm doing that? Putting it on my index finger. I'm draping the petal over that index finger. I'm taking my index and thumb of the opposite hand and put it on the side of that petal and then pinch it in toward the center, and then using the thumb, I'm pushing it in like that. You're going to do that to all your petals. You don't need to do that to your buds, but you do need to do that to all the other petals. And I did color the front and the back side of my petals. And the reason why I use pastels instead of watercolors or misting is because it is so delicate. This paper, if you do water it, it's gonna break on you. So that's why I'm using pastels. Okay, now that I have, except for this one. Let me go ahead and do this one real quick. And I prefer this method than crumpling it up because I really have more control on the petals doing that method. So now this is ready to use since it's nice and adhere there. I'm going to put my first flower through. Put a bit of adhesive on the bottom. And I'm just going to thread it through. Okay. Then I'm going to take this petal and I'm just going to drape it on the little pearl here, or a little ball. And then I'm going to drape the opposite and see how I kind of cuff it over that one. And you're just creating a bud. Opposite side, I'm going to go ahead and use my opposite side. Put some adhesive here. Drape it, and I hope you can see that. And just cover the bead. See how I cover the bead? You don't really see the bead anymore. Now you're going to take this one. Do the same thing. But instead of putting it, you're going to glue one side. So instead of gluing all the sides towards the center, you glue one side, and then the opposite, you're just going to bend it back. Start opening your flower that way. And see how it looks? I glue this side, and then I bend it back the other side. You're going to do the same thing here. And you're going to glue this side. And I just like to, if I start gluing the right side, then the left side I don't glue. Or if I put a glue, I put a little bit at the bottom of the left side. And then bend it back. See how it starts looking like a little bud. This one I might close it a little more. And then bend it back. See, it looks like a little bud. Let's get all the glue wispies out. Okay. You see that? Little bud. Now we're going to take the next one, the next size, do the same thing. And see, this one teared a little bit. You got to be very careful with these flowers. And it's just because of the material. But even though it tear, we can still use it. Because you're going to put glue at the bottom first. You're going to put glue at the base of the flower. Pull it up like that. Hold it for a little bit. Okay. Now we're going to start with one flower, one petal. I'm going to put glue more on the left hand side. Bring it up and fold back the opposite side. And then see how I open it up this side? So now I'm going to glue this one inside the first petal. So the right side of the petal, so that right side, push it in. And see how I start to do that? I'm going to put some glue on the right of this petal. Push it in underneath the last petal. And do that. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. Put glue on the right side of that petal. Push it in behind the first petal. Let's see. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to put glue on the right side of that petal. Glue it underneath the last petal, and then the opposite side of the petal you bend it out. So it looks something like that. Not much, doesn't look much, but as you put more, it'll start taking shape. You're going to feed the next size up. Okay. Put some adhesive on the base of your flower. Push it up. And that's why I like to use wire, because I really have more control. I can hold it and like push it up against the base, and it works a lot better. And make sure that you offset the petals. So you put the next petal in between the previous two. And you just need to, on this one, you're just going to put some glue on the base, and then you push it up. We're just going to start opening our flower. You push it up, and then you bend the petals back. So you start opening your flower. Put some glue here. Push it up. And start opening your flower. See how it's kind of opening? And there's the next. So now we're going to take the next one. And this one, you are going to try to offset it a little. So notice that this is this petal and this petal. This one is going to go in between those two like that. So let's go ahead and do that. Hold it up, push it up, hold it. And I love making these flowers. I truly, truly do. They are so beautiful. They really gives your layout that romantic, shabby chic, elegant look, kinda. Especially if you put some gesso or white paint on it, it really, really looks nice. Okay, and I got glue all over. Next one, and notice that I'm not bringing this side up. That's the side that I kind of and crinkled up. It's the opposite side, so the petals are bending backwards, or the creases are bending back. And I also, another thing I like about these flowers, I love the color variation that you get with pastels, because you don't get an even color. It's like, see how you get white with some areas of dark and areas that didn't quite get all the pastel colors on. I mean, it really looks nice. And you're just going to put glue in between just to make sure that it really tugs up. So I'm putting a little bit of glue here and there just to make sure that it tugs all the way up. Like this one, see how it's kind of a little open there? So if I want to close it a little bit, I just put a little bit of glue there and then push it up. And that really forms your flower. Now, you can leave it like this. I'm going to make some of them that are going to be small. So this could be a small little flower. But I am going to put some more layers. So it depends how many layers you put and the size of the flower. You can make a big one like that or a little one like that. And look how pretty it will look. This large one and then this little one next to it. Really, this technique, you can really use it for any type of petal. Even 5 petals, you can use it. 6 petal. I'm going to try to use that same technique with these. And we'll see how they come out. Okay, this one, put some adhesive. Let me pull this aside so that way you can see, hopefully you can see a little better. Now you got to be careful because it has a big hole, so when you put glue, some of that glue seeps out from underneath the petal and you do get it on your hand, so be careful. So what I usually do, as you can see, I touch and let go so that way I don't burn myself. And this is the last one. And make sure that I offset it before I glue it. Make sure I have it in the position that I want it before I push it up. And there you have it. And there's your flowers. See how beautiful they came out? So let me go ahead and create more flowers. I need to create a lot more before we return to our project. Okay, so these are the other flowers. I'm going to show you how I created this. And then what I want to do is I'm going to put a middle is center and see how pretty that looks. And that's, the center was created with this. So I just took any yellow paper. This is leftover from another project. So I'm just going to punch out 3 of these. And I really, really love this punch. I think this is one of my best investments yet, because I can make those little centers for my flowers and make them look similar to Prima flowers. So once you do that, I'm going to bring back my mouse pad, and I'm going to put the color that I want to show on top, because even though it's the white is at the bottom, but when you push it up or push it back, once you insert it in the flower, you will see the yellow color will be prominent on that. So you just put the color that you want to show. It's going to be on top. Then you take some glue, put a little bit on the center, just a little dab, and close up. See how I close it up? Crush it in the middle and just roll it up like that. Then you're going to take a little bit more, just a little dab will do. Put it on the next stamen. It's called Starburst. That's the name of this punch. It's from McGill, and it's called Starburst. And then one last one. Do the same thing. And just really Crank it up like that, or crush it and put that aside. Then I'm going to show you how to do the flowers. I took 3 of the petals, and 2 of these 6-punch flower, this one, and you're just going to emboss it. And just roughly emboss the flower and turn it over. Emboss the middle. The same thing here. Turn it over. And then you take these. And what I like to do is I like to make the slit a little larger. So I kind of make a slit up to almost the center of this flower. Now I'm just gonna take the smaller stylus and carefully emboss this flower. Turn it over. Do the same thing with the next. And you're probably wondering, why don't I glimmer mist it before I put all the flowers together? It's because this flower, see how it's kind of delicate, the paper? So that's the reason, because once you put layers of this paper, it makes it a lot more sturdier, and it will accept the glimmer mist better, and it won't break on you. I feel like if I glimmer mist it before I put it together, it was just going to break apart, and I wouldn't have been able to emboss it because it would have been too fragile. Okay, so once I do that, I'm going to take and make a big hole in the center. And then I need to bring my punch a little more towards the side and then go down again. And make it a little wider so that way it will fit through. Otherwise it wouldn't. This is too thick to fit through that hole, so you got to make the hole a little bigger. So you just move the punch down just a little bit and then punch again. Okay, and then what I did is I went ahead and got my glimmer box, and I first spritz it. I have some Glimmer Mist by Tatter Angels, and this color is, let's see what color, Lemon Zest. So I took some Lemon Zest and I lay a coat down of my Lemon Zest. And then I took some Candy Red or Candy Apple Red and just, now it doesn't want to glimmer mist. Well, let me try this one. This one is red from Arto. Just put a little bit of that. Okay. Then I'm going to take my heat tool. And notice as I dry it, I'm fluffing it up. Okay. And then I'm just going to take one of these stamens, press it down, and just push on it. And once I get it how I want it, then I'm just going to put a little bit of glue just to keep it in place. And there, that's my flower. So see how pretty that looks? And this one, let me go ahead and I'm going to finish these off, and then I'll be back. Okay, so now I went ahead and placed my my frame, and I stamped in there Mama Tere, which is my grandmother name. And then I put some glossy accent on the branch, because when you put acrylic on it, it dulled it a little bit and it was not shiny, and I want it kind of shiny. So I went ahead and did that. So the next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and start preparing my flowers, my little flowers. And these are the ones I'm going to put around the branch. And I wanted to pick up this color up here, so that way it will balance. Again, everything has to do with balance, so it will balance out this grouping here with these colors up on top. So I'm using this red, and then I'm using these little Prima flowers. So what I do is I put some on my craft mat, and then the flowers just soak up that red pretty good. As you can see here. And then you take your heat gun, and I went ahead and dried all those flowers. So now I'm going to create the frame. Now the embellishment that you see there, that cluster of flowers on the paper, was on opposite side, and I wanted to kind of bring it down a little more. I wanted to make a smaller square, and I wanted to use that so I can insert my pictures underneath those flowers. So that's what I'm doing. I'm cutting out the outline of those flowers, as you can see there. And I cut my paper in half, and then I put it together. You won't even see it because it is wood. You don't see really where I cut the paper and glued it together. So here, that's my frame. And I'm just going to go ahead and put some mini glue dots to make sure that my picture does not move. Now I'm ready to place it on my layout, but I need to also go in my layout and cut out the dress form and those flowers, so that way I can also insert that frame underneath it. So now I'm going to just put a lot of adhesive, and I really like it's coming out, how it's coming out. And then I put another paper in the back because I want to make sure that it doesn't catch on anything, and just to kind of cover the cut line that I had from inserting my picture frame underneath the dress form. So here I'm just putting that doily on the side there, and I'm going back to the reference just to see if I missed anything. And then I decided to put this is part of a paper, is die cut with a view heritage paper, and I saved off some of the paper that had rulers and things like that, and that's what I used to kind of embellish my pages. So now I'm kind of ready to place all my flowers. So I'm putting the little cherry blossoms on my tree. Now I'm ready to decided to put some leaves, and then lay my flowers on top of the leaf. And I'm building my cluster in that area that already had a cluster of flowers, but these flowers now look three-dimensional, or they're three-dimensional. So I don't have smaller leaves, so what I do is I cut these silk leaves smaller, so that way it will work for that small flower. And then I'm just going to put another cluster of flowers, but this time I'm using some of my silk flowers, and I'm going to use two, one on each side of that frame. So, and usually you don't have to spend a lot of money on flowers. You can buy the cheap little flowers from the dollar store and they look very nice. You can just pull them apart and use the different layers and it looks very nice. So I'm almost done with laying flowers. I think that's the last bit of flower that I put on this layout. And then I decided that it needed something. So I took this, I have this bridal trim, and I'm going to place that right on top of my lace. And I liked it better underneath, right on top of the lace than put it on top of that measuring ruler. And then I'm deciding what kind of glitter butterfly I want to use. I decided not to use any of the gold or the silver because I wanted to give it a subtle look. So for me, the brown was the one that really was working for this layout. And then I decided to use this bow and put a butterfly on the frame and another butterfly on the dress form. So now I decided also I kind of needed to bling up a little more of those cherry blossoms. So I'm putting some rhinestones on each of the centers of my cherry blossom. And this little nifty tool that you see me using is a bead. You find it in the bead area and it just picks it up, picks the rhinestones, no problem. And you can lay it on your page. So I decided to write a title, and instead of putting the title on top of the page, I decided to balance it out. It would be best to put the title right there on the bottom. So the title that I decided to use was Galinda's Family Tree, because this is my mom's side of the family, my grandmother and my aunts and uncles from my mother's side. And the font that you see there is actually the script font from Sizzix. It's one of those Sizzlets, and it's very, very old. I believe it has about 9 years since I purchased these. And now now that I have everything organized and easy accessible, I'm able to use some of my old products more often. And here I'm just giving you a closer look of the layout and the frame. I really like how that frame came out. And then here's the bridal trim with my title. So I hope you enjoyed this video process. I know it was a little long, but I wanted to show you all the different techniques that hopefully you can use for your next layout. And I thank you for watching. Bye now.